Greetings to each of you, my colleagues. Welcome home to your Oakwood University. And on behalf of the Oakwood faculty, staff, and students, I welcome you to the annual Pastoral Evangelism Leadership Conference. Dr. Drake and the entire regional caucus have invested significant human and financial resources into making this 2011 annual conference the high point of professional clergy development and the premier professional clergy conference in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. My regrets to Pastor Russell and the PELC planning team as well, because I know how much hard work you have put into the planning of this year's conference. I join my colleagues in praying for this year's conference. I especially wanted to both listen in and join the conversation on how we will relate to our clergy colleagues in other faith traditions. This is an important conversation, and we have to get it right for the mission of this church that we all love. Prudence and I regret that we cannot be in attendance this year, but our Oakwood team is preparing for our once per decade accreditation site visit on February 28, 2012, and the President's presence is required at this year's meeting in Orlando, Florida. During last year's conference, right around this same time, Dr. Russell invited Prudence and me to the stage for a special season of prayer in which my colleagues laid hands on us and consecrated us to this mission with prayer. It was a very moving moment in our service and a powerful impetus for our service to this wonderful institution called Oakwood. We assumed our responsibilities on January 3rd, and might I say, we entered to a blinding snowstorm here in Huntsville, Alabama. But let me acquaint you with a few highlights that occurred during the last 11 months. Life Core. That's one word that I want you to remember. In the first 100 days of my administration, we launched a historic research project at Oakwood University, the single most in-depth research conducted on African American students in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Sister Prudence designed, conducted, and administered the study. Life Core, a 52-item customized assessment conducted on a sample size of 852 Oakwood University students. Life Core, the single most comprehensive study of African American youth and their spirituality in the history of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Here is some of what we found about your young people during our Life Core study. Let me give you an example. 80% of the students said that the classes most meaningful to them at Oakwood University were those that integrated Seventh-day Adventist faith perspectives into the content of the classes they took. The outcome from that learning was a series of integration and faith and learning emphases at our August colloquium. The theme was God First. And now throughout the year, we have a series of demonstrations of how to integrate faith and learning during our faculty meetings. Another example, 83% of our Oakwood students said that they were either committed or decidedly committed to using the Bible as God's revealed word and authoritative for truth and guidance. When asked, are you decidedly committed, though, to supporting world evangelism through personal participation or financial contribution, 61% answered that they were committed or decidedly committed. This tells us something, that we have much more scriptural education to put forward in the lives of young people in order to get them animated about the mission of the church. Here's another example. Students were asked, are you committed or decidedly committed to upholding Seventh-day Adventist standards of dress? You know what they said? 65% said, yes, we are. That tells us that there needs to be an ongoing conversation with our students around mission, standards, and the message of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and those we have scheduled for January of this coming year. The President will use a town hall format, and that town hall format will give students an opportunity to ask questions and to be in conversation about this important dimension of what the Seventh-day Adventist Church teaches. When students were asked, which service contributes to your spiritual life? Guess which one they picked? They said that of all the services on campus, 73% said Friday night AY is the most meaningful service to their spiritual growth and development. That tells us that we need to study AY to see if there are principles and practices that can now be generalized to the rest of the worship occasions that define the Oakwood University experience. Here's another word I'd like you to remember. It's the word registration. Yes, registration. Registration has been an organizational Achilles heel for decades, but no longer. through a series of very intentional and tactical corrections, like online registration. We are pleased to report that before the last day of on-site registration during August, Oakwood had already enrolled 1,700 students online before anyone showed up by August 10. And really, colleagues, it was amusing in a playful way to watch parents who had planned a week to fight through registration based upon past experiences to be finished in 45 to 60 minutes. This August's registration produced the smoothest and most customer-friendly registration in Oakwood's modern history. Now here's the last word that I'd like for you to remember: enrollment. Oakwood University experienced record-setting enrollment this past August. Interestingly, when Ellen White visited this campus, she looked at the 16 students and said wistfully, "I would that there were 100 students here at Oakwood." Well, 107 years later, I am pleased to report by September 23, 2011, Oakwood University had registered 2,006 students. God be praised. And then there were other highlights during the year, like First Chapel, when the theme was God First. We rolled out 70 Days of Power, which was the most extensive spiritual pursuit of God that our community has ever seen. 30 days of studying 1 Corinthians 13, 40 of studying the baptism of the Holy Spirit. There was colloquium in August on the integration of faith and learning. There was the first ever spring council of the General Conference held on Oakwood University's campus. There was the constituency meeting. And in that constituency meeting, a historic codification took place in our bylaws. In those bylaws, for the first time in the history of Adventist education, the president of a Seventh-day Adventist university was named not only the CEO, but also the CSO, the Chief Spiritual Officer, by constituency action. This historic action will ripple out from Oakwood University and affect the spiritual temperature of other institutions of higher education. No longer will we have to wonder who is responsible for the spiritual life of the institution. The Oakwood University Constituency and Board of Trustees have said, when we want to know about the spiritual temperature of Oakwood University, we are going to start by checking in with the president, because he is the person named in our bylaws as responsible for driving the spiritual mission of the institution. Well, there was graduation, which was wonderful. It had to be delayed because of a major tornado on April 27th, and we moved it to May, and our team at Oakwood pulled it off without a hitch, and we thank you for your support. And then in November, Oakwood was the HBCU of the month. Tom Joyner constantly recognized Oakwood University for its singular contributions to the HBCU family. And those contributions certainly turn around, among other things, the music of the Aeolians, who, by the way, won the I Sing competition, the National HBCU Choir Contest, once again, and so they are back-to-back winners. And we have other music on campus: Dynamic Praise, the Voices of Triumph, Committed, and many, many more. We've run Purity Under Reconstruction conferences, in which we are actually, honestly, forthrightly discussing with young people sexual standards and making godly choices when it comes to this area of their lives. Then there was the reorganization of our Office of Spiritual Life, in which we moved from one chaplain now to a chaplain's team with a senior chaplain and 2 associate chaplains to do the on-the-ground work for keeping spiritual life active on our campus. There's accreditation preparation that's going on, and I would really be remiss if I didn't mention the absolutely amazing inauguration that took place on Oakwood's campus from October 13 through 16 of this past year. There we brought the entire leadership intelligentsia to Oakwood University from across the city of Huntsville and from around the country. As a matter of fact, things were so wonderful this year that we received a special acknowledgement, not by our design, but a special acknowledgement of Oakwood University by Dr. Phil McGraw. It was a show in which he was talking to a 16-year-old named Alex, who at the time of the show had lost 300 pounds. And so when Dr. Phil asked him, well, what do you want to do with your future? Alex answered, to all of their surprise, I want to go to Oakwood. Of course, Dr. Phil had never heard of Oakwood, we're told. But in subsequent conversations, he and his team were fascinated by the mission, the history, and the purpose for which Oakwood University was founded. And colleagues, once again, I want to remind you, as I remind myself, these kinds of things are not about any one person. They're always about God's blessing upon Oakwood University. Colleagues, one day everyone will know about Oakwood University. And instead of 2,000 students, we'll have 5,000 students. God will enlarge Oakwood's territory in ways that we have not imagined. Thank you very much for your support. Oakwood needs strong clergy partners in leadership. So please keep us in your prayer. And when I say, oh, you, I want to hear you say, oh, yes. Now, if you'd like real-time info from me about Oakwood or anything that we're doing, feel free to follow me on Twitter at Les Pollard or on Facebook, or you may also receive the President's FYI. All you'll have to do is go to our website, www.oakwood.edu, to sign up for President's FYI, and also for our weekly newsletter that we push out called Oh You, Oh Yes. And may God bless you, and above all, may God bless Oakwood University.